the headquarters of Terrorism English in Quito, Ecuador. I am Estefania Bravo. This is from the South. Chile's police chief has resigned following the release of a video that shows the death of Mapuche activist Camilo Catrillanca. After Hermes Soto tendered his resignation on Thursday at the request of President Sebastián Piñera, 10 other police generals also called it quits. This was followed by clashes between police and protesters on the streets of Santiago.
The National Police Force needs new leadership. Today I asked for the resignation of General Hermes Soto, the chief of the National Police. The process for his removal is already under.
And Chile's Constitutional Court is debating whether to grant parole to former soldiers accused of crimes against humanity under the Pinochet dictatorship. To allow parole, an amendment would have to be made into law. Members of the political coalition party Chile Vamos have petitioned the court to declare the amendment is unconstitutional. The former soldiers are accused of carrying out kidnappings, forced disappearances, torture, and the rape and murder of women and children.
This country knows that those who committed crimes against humanity, genocide and mass torture deserve to be condemned.
We are here because we don't want the criminals to escape the justice by serving their full terms in jail. Because they commit human rights violations, they cannot go unpunished. They were murderers, raped women, killed children, and tortured people.
And the country's Human Rights Commission has approved jail terms for any person who denies the crimes committed during the Pinochet dictatorship. Under the new measure, fines will also be issued. Chile is finally adhering to international law by condemning people who denied the barbarity of the military dictatorship. Chilean port workers in Valparaíso have reached a deal to put an end to month-long strike action, which had caused fruit exports to fall significantly. The workers received assurances from the company Terminal Pacífico Sur that they would provide them with a bonus, more formal contracts, and improved working conditions. Port employees say they will return to work once the agreement is signed and all proposals are met. U.S. President Donald Trump has signed the Nicaraguan Investment Conditionality Act, or the NICA Act, into law. This will see a number of economic sanctions imposed on the government of Nicaragua.
On the heels of the NICA Act being signed into law, people on the streets did not wait to make their reactions known. This law conditions the government of Nicaragua into getting U.S. approval for any loan it seeks to make with international institutions.
Why must the United States interfere like this? Why do they have to hurt us like this? Do they care so much about what we do and how we do it? I get up at 4 a.m. and wonder how am I going to pay for my bills. I'm haunted by all the issues I have to deal with. And despite the political crisis, this year has actually been good for me in comparison to other years. I don't know who those who agree with these sanctions are, but they can be Nicaraguan. They are traitors.
The NICA Act was pushed forward by Cuban-American members of the United States Congress. It was first brought forth in 2016, and it received the support of the Nicaraguan opposition, who were also allegedly behind recent coup attempts in the country. This new law could seriously affect lives of everyday citizens.
We only want to live in peace. The past few months have been peaceful. Thankfully, earlier this year, we were living through an unbelievable violence. You couldn't leave home. We are close to Christmas. We want to celebrate. I hope things improve. We have faith in the government. We believe they will find a way to solve these issues.
Experts agree the signing of the NICA Act into law was expected and have said it will lead to negative effects in Nicaragua. Nonetheless, they believe the Sandinista government is ready to face the new attack.
The only real limitation I can see with this law is in regards to the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. But they won't get the last word. The opposition doesn't even have 50% of the votes to stop the government. Those traitors, they have always been linked to easy money, to political money. They see themselves trapped. So we should have expected they would do something like this.
Over the next few days, an official reaction is expected from the government in regards to this new imperialist aggression.
Earlier, we spoke with Chuck Kaufman, the national coordinator of the Alliance for Global Justice. We asked Chuck what might be the consequences of this act.
It could cut off international capital for Nicaragua, but it's not certain yet that that'll be the case. In the past, the U.S. has pretty much had veto power over multilateral loans, but the Inter-American Development Bank, for instance, last year changed from requiring a consensus to a majority vote, and the U.S. doesn't have a majority. And in the Inter-American Development Bank, we don't know yet what will happen with the World Bank. It doesn't have a majority in any of the multilateral lenders.
We also asked Chuck what he made of the international media coverage of the events that transpired in Nicaragua this year.
Well, the coverage has been shameful. It's not journalism. It's stenography of the State Department line, the opposition line. The opposition in Nicaragua are people who have been trained over the years in how to manipulate social media, et cetera, through the National Endowment for Democracy and USAID democracy promotion grants. And, we're seeing the fruit of that investment now, and the media doesn't even bother to interview people who don't fall into that official narrative.
And the foreign minister of Cuba was among the first to publicly react. Minister Bruno Rodriguez tweeted, "Our full solidarity with Nicaragua and the Sandinista governments against the unilateral and imperialist sanctions imposed under #NICA Act." In Venezuela, 15,000 people attended the Bolivarian People's Congress in the company of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. More on the event and his speech in this report.
Chavismo showed its support for the new lines of action announced by the government for 2019. Nicolás Maduro reiterated his position to defend his mandate and to reject intervention from Colombia.
All polls that I know of show that more than 80% of Venezuelans reject any type of international intervention. Any problems Venezuelans may have, we will solve them here, in peace. We don't need the Colombian oligarchy and Iván Duque to talk about Venezuela. Iván Duque doesn't even govern Colombia and wants to govern Venezuela. Go away, Iván Duque.
The Venezuelan president spoke of the importance of the implementation of the plan for the homeland as part of the revolution.
I am prepared and I feel safe with everything we've done. I am confident because I have a plan. The plan that you approved on May 20th. The plan of the homeland 2019-2025. And come rain or shine, we will make this plan a reality.
Following news of an orchestrated plan by other nations against the Bolivarian process, the Venezuelan head of state had this to say.
If someday difficult events take place and you see that President Maduro was kidnapped or they did anything to Maduro, I am telling you, workers' class, men and women, take to the streets, regain power and create a more powerful revolution, even more socialist, even more Chavista.
During this meeting, the fight against corruption and the creation of a national coordination of the Bolivarian Congress of the Peoples were key components for the new presidential period of Nicolás Maduro, which will begin on January 10th.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Colombian government has ejected Venezuelan official Carlos Pino from the country. This move has been widely rejected by social activists who demand that President Iván Duque work to improve the relationship between both countries.
After Carlos Pino was removed from the country, Colombia's immigration director said this decision was made to protect the country's sovereignty.
This report has information where you can figure out that this person could have disturbed public order and national security. These are the grounds on which the decision to eject him from the country was made. This was classified information.
Gloria Flores, the wife of the Venezuelan official Carlos Pino, pointed out that this decision by the Colombian government seeks to disrupt relations with Venezuela. They are asking Venezuelan authorities to be aware of this situation, which is part of the campaign against President Nicolás Maduro.
My husband's case must not be used as a scapegoat for more aggression. I don't want it to be used for that purpose, and I ask the Venezuelan government to be careful. Please don't fall for the games of those who want to start a fight.
In the face of Pino's expulsion, Congress members have demanded a statement from President Iván Duque.
The question that I ask the President and the Foreign Minister is, where are they taking us with this type of actions? Duque is making known that on January 10 he's going to escalate the diplomatic crisis with Venezuela.
At the end of the press conference, international measures will be taken against what many consider a dirty move.
We're going to talk with the European Union, with the United Nations Human Rights Commission, and we're going to raise an international alert that human rights are being violated. Life and peace is being put in danger in Colombia.
The removal of Venezuelan citizen Carlos Pino is just one of the many actions that this government of Iván Duque has taken to disrupt Venezuela.
Mexican police have detained at least 24 migrants as they tried to evict them from the Benito Juárez Sports Center in Tijuana. In the early hours of Thursday, police raided the complex to evict some 200 migrants. They have been moved to an alternative shelter while they wait for their asylum claims to the U.S. to be processed. The official reason for the raid is not yet known. And Mexico says it has never signed any agreement with the United States allowing third country migrants to stay in Mexico while their asylum applications are heard in the U.S. Mexico Foreign Minister made the declaration just one day after the U.S. Homeland Security Secretary said that the Trump administration will send migrants crossing the border back to Mexico while claims are proceeding. Now, U.S. officials are forced to register asylum seekers already in the country. They can either charge them with illegal entry or start processing their asylum request.
Mexico will not deport those people who seek asylum. That will go against the Mexican tradition in favor of the asylum right, and will go against the migrants' human rights. And of course, we will not do that.
And during a business forum in Uruguay, President Tabaré Vázquez spoke about the country's economic growth through 2018 and added that Uruguay will not enter a recession.
Despite what has been said of Uruguay, that we were going to enter a recession in December, that simply did not happen. We saw an economic growth of 2.5% in the third trimester alone. According to forecasts by the Ministry of the Economy, we also believe that this fourth trimester will show growth of either 2 or 2.5%. Uruguay did not go into recession, and it will not go into recession.
Ecuadorian scientists have outlined an ambitious plan to save endangered primates in the country. This is no monkey business because out of 21 primate species in Ecuador, 11 are considered endangered or threatened. From shrinking habitats, human-spread diseases, to being hunted as ceremonial meat at indigenous weddings, primates in Ecuador face a wide range of threats. The conservation plan aims to reduce the threats they currently face over the next decade. As a start, scientists have launched the first national census of these species.
It is ambitious, but I will expect that at least 50% will be achieved in some way in these 10 years and give us a break so that primates still survive for the next generations in the coming decades.
Grenada's top telecommunications company Flow has filed a lawsuit against the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority for discrimination. It wants to revoke a decision made by the regulator to award the 700 spectrum license to an Irish-based company, Digicel. Flow has claimed the regulator unfairly awarded the license to Digicel, despite the fact that both companies simultaneously applied for it. Let's go to another story. United Nations human rights experts repeated a demand that the UK government abide by its international obligations and immediately allow Wikileaks founder Julian Assange to walk free from the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Our correspondent Pablo Navarrete brings us the news from London.
The United Nations today repeated a demand that the UK government abide by its international obligations and international law and allow the editor and founder of Wikileaks, Julian Assange, to leave the Ecuadorian embassy in London and not face arrest and possible extradition to the US. In a statement released by the Commission for Human Rights, echoing a judgment they released in December 2016 in which they said that the UK was in contravention of international law and was effectively arbitrarily detaining Mr. Assange in the embassy. They called for the British government to meet these international obligations. Now, this comes on the back of a visit by two German MPs from the left-wing Die Linke party yesterday, who came to show solidarity with Mr. Assange. And on the 10th of December, there was a letter of 30 MPs from Germany and a range of other European countries released on International Human Rights Day to highlight the plight of Mr. Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. As we know, recently there have been increased speculation that Ecuadorian President Lenin Moreno is looking for ways to effectively get rid of Julian Assange from the embassy, and a number of theories have been put forward as to when this might happen. It does appear that it is imminent, and now with this latest call for the British government to act, we will see if they indeed reply. Although initially the Home Secretary, with the equivalent to the Minister of the Interior, Sajid Javid, brushed off the UN's report effectively, and so there does not appear to be any significant move from the British government to respond to this. The other interesting issue is that this news has not received, it hardly received any media attention in the UK. So Mr. Assange is certainly a quite isolated figure at the moment in terms of reaching the international media with his plight.
We thank Pablo for that report. Let's go to Cuba now, where huge waves caused inland flooding in Havana as an extratropical low pushing through parts of the southeastern corner of the U.S. brought high surf to the island. Waves crashed over the Malecon seawall, and as water levels rose, affected residents sought higher ground. Many families were forced to move their belongings to upper floors as they waited for floodwaters to recede. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives, Friday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Israeli forces have killed a 16-year-old boy and injured another 25 people in the Gaza Strip, according to Palestinian health officials. The Israeli military said about 8,000 Palestinians protested near the border fence, mostly peacefully. Some protesters burned tires and tried to throw an explosive device into Israel without success. Since weekly border protests began in March 2018, Israeli forces have killed more than 220 Palestinians. Former South African President Jacob Zuma is set to return to politics next year. The African National Congress Party has nominated Zuma as part of a list of members who will be heading to parliament after the 2019 elections. It is not clear if Zuma will accept the nomination. He resigned as president earlier this year following demands from his party to step down amidst corruption scandals. 5 suspects have appeared in court in Kenya on terrorism charges. The 5 men are accused of killing at least 148 students during an attack on a university in 2015. Somali jihadist group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for the attack. They said it was revenge against the Kenyan government for sending soldiers across the border into Somalia.
It puts me in a difficult position.
Thousands of Catalan pro-independence protesters have taken to the streets of Barcelona, Spain. They are protesting a government cabinet meeting being held in the city. Protesters are angry that the Spanish government picked their city as the venue for their weekly meeting. They have described it as a mockery of their struggle for independence. At least 11 people have been arrested after police cracked down on protesters gathered near the meeting. 50 people have been injured in the clashes. And Friday's meeting is being held exactly 1 year after the previous Spanish government held snap elections in Catalonia.
This is a provocation from a colonial government. They have come to the colony to tell us things. They have told us this morning that they have renamed the airport as if it were a great thing to do. No, what they have to do is to negotiate which state we will have the referendum, and that's all.
The 21st of December last year, when we were forced to vote in regional elections, we won, and our government was taken away from us, and theirs was implemented. We don't want them. We want them to leave. We want a republic. We don't want to pay taxes in Spain because we want them for our own people.
Our correspondent in Barcelona, Joan Ortiz, was at the scene. He sent us this report before the violence broke out.
A day of mobilizations has been taking place in Barcelona, and despite some clashes between protesters and the police, the majority of the marches have gone off peacefully. The first clashes took place near one of the access points to Lotja de Mar, where the cabinet meeting is taking place. Large areas around the meeting have been cordoned off for security reasons. Nonetheless, early in the morning, members of the Committees for the Defense of the Republic, or CDR, started marching towards the cabinet meeting from various points in Barcelona. Access to the Catalan capital has basically been shut down due to the various mobilizations and road blockades set up by protesters. This meeting is seen as a provocation to the pro-independence movement, who are unhappy about the presence of Spanish authorities here. Many feel this is a slap in the face and a forceful reminder that Catalonia is being ruled not by its own government, but by the Spanish government. Less than 24 hours ago, Spanish President Pedro Sánchez and the President of the government of Catalonia, Quim Torra, met and agreed to maintain an open dialogue between both sides. Nonetheless, what was very evident was that the Spanish and Catalan positions are very far apart. One side seems to care only about the right to self-determination, while the other cares only about autonomy. We have to wait and see if these two sides can find a middle ground.
We thank Joan Ortiz for that report. Dozens of people have gathered in Lisbon, Portugal, to protest against the high cost of living and government's corruption. Protesters blocked roads and chanted anti-government slogans while wearing yellow vests, similar to those worn by protesters in France. Similar protests have also been held in other cities across the country, such as Porto and Braga.
There is too much theft. We have a parliament full of parasites. MPs who earn lots of money and don't even provide their real addresses. Our MPs and politicians are all corrupt, and we want to bring an end to that. We want a better life, an increase to the minimum wage and a reduction in taxes.
A South Korean research institute has announced that K-pop boy band BTS is boosting tourism in the country. Every 13 tourists visited South Korea last year because of the increasing popularity of the band. BTS is estimated to be worth $3.6 billion to the domestic economy. Earlier this year, the group became the first K-pop band to top the US music charts. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.